Hey, I'm Noam Szpiro. I'm an engineering manager at Instacart, working from New York City. During college, I ended up working at a small startup. It was an interesting startup, like doing fairly well. But I think my role wasn't very exciting to me at the time. It was kind of like building sort of small skins. I was kind of doing some software engineering there. But yeah, I didn't find it really exciting. But I did think of something that could be exciting to work on. So I ended up working on it a little bit on the side after work, and then at some point kind of showed it to my boss, and he's like, "Oh yeah, this is really good. Let's use that." And then basically I ended up switching and started working on that basically for the next few months. And kind of what I took from that is that sometimes you need to have these side projects even at work, and sometimes it's not going to pay off, but sometimes people will actually like it and will end up being the thing you'll be working on full time, basically. I've always been interested in computer science, how things work behind the scene. But I think the more I got into it, the thing that really made me passionate about engineering is how much you can really change, really almost on your own, really. And I don't really see that in any other industry. You can really start, build an app on your own, and somehow a week later, maybe you're impacting millions of people around the world. I thought a lot about like what other industries are actually like that, where a single person can have so much impact on the world. And I didn't really think of anything that's like remotely close to that. It's also fun to solve these problems. It's a little bit like small challenges, or it was like math, so it's a little bit like solving math riddles and kind of figuring out what's the right answer. Yeah, it's interesting because a startup is very different than a corporate environment. But what I actually like to do is I like to try and think that they're not that different and try and see how can I make almost like my teams act a little bit like a startup. What I found that really works for me is try to get the people on my team to act a little bit like their own founders. Like what drives me is usually kind of thinking of my own project and thinking, okay, how can I make this project into something big? And then when I feel like I have that power, or like that I'm empowered to make these changes, that's when I get really passionate about it. And that's when I do everything I can to make this product work. Like when you zoom out, that's like the same goals you have at a startup and at a big corporate company. It's just that maybe the feature is different. The feature is the company in a startup. Then in the big corporate world, maybe the feature is like a very small thing in that whole company. What I try to do is get every engineer to think about every feature they have as their own little company, basically. And I tell them, hey, like you're the CEO of this feature. If you want to create this additional button that's going to be red, that's going to get people to click it more often, you go for it and do that. Try and like learn from it if it doesn't work. I'm very big into experimentation, which is actually really a really big advantage that you have in a corporate job rather than a startup, because a startup generally you don't have as many users that you can test things in with. And in the corporate world, you can do that. So that gives you the advantage of actually knowing if what you're building is the right thing, which is incredibly valuable and really satisfying, actually. I tend to like to work in environments like that where there's a lot of innovation, and innovation is really bottoms up, basically. Not to over-index on experience. At least for me, that happened to me in the past, where I look at someone's resume and I think, oh my God, this person is perfect. Even before I talk to them, I already know, oh, this is a really good background. They're going to do really well. And so that at that point, like that really colors your perspective on them. And the interview is going to go well if you think their background is good, basically. Which is not ideal. Then they might join, and then you find out actually like their experience isn't really relevant to the role. So I think what I try to do now is kind of look at their experience and see, okay, understand at a high level, okay, is this is this someone that could be good? And then I try to ignore it and basically look at them as if they don't have any experience and see what they're capable of. The opposite is also true, where someone who might not have an engineering background and might not have worked at companies that I know, sometimes they end up being exceptionally good. And if I had over-indexed on their background, maybe I wouldn't have hired them. Once they're on the team, just ignore their background completely and give them opportunities and see how they work with those products. Yeah, I think there are a few different areas. One is I think more on the company level, different challenges there, and how to structure teams, what are the problems that people are solving, things like that. And then at the same time, there's also management challenges that I'm trying to figure out. I have a few philosophies for how I like to manage my teams. And if it's a new manager that hasn't had experience managing teams in the past, and I might help them kind of come up with that philosophy. And sometimes you get managers who have managed in the past and have had that time to really think about, okay, how do they like to manage teams, which is great too. And there are just different management styles, and when you're managing those other managers, you need to give them a little bit of a chance and see if this new different management style really works, and is that the right management style we need for that team. So that's a little bit challenging, and it always takes a little bit of time to kind of figure that out and see how the team is doing. You want to give them that opportunity to fail, but you want to stop it right before it fails. It's really hard to time it exactly right, where you're catching it at the right spot, and okay, here's the style that didn't quite work this time, and I managed to cut it right before it exploded and became too late. So kind of working through that and figuring out when's the right time to get more involved, when is the time to step back and give them that opportunity to either really succeed or fail. I think both of those are fine at the beginning to do. I think the industry as a whole is evolving in a way where maybe you should be able to do a lot more with less people. You see it with all these tools that exist now, like Snowflake and things like that, where they really help you basically build those tools that in the past maybe you needed a whole team for, basically, and now you don't. You could just use a third-party tool. So I think in the next few years, there will probably be more of those sort of tools where, big companies tend to have their own platform teams. Maybe in the future, there won't be those platform teams, and things will just work a little bit better. You'll just be able to accomplish a lot more with less people. Maybe that means there'll be less focus on people management at that point, and maybe more focused on project management and strategy, and figuring out what are some of the projects we need to build basically over the next few years to make the company grow. That's definitely one area that things could grow into. I think another one is probably a little bit more focused on ML. And obviously, throughout my career, I've seen this change completely. Basically, every new job I join, I see, okay, how much more we're suddenly investing into machine learning algorithms. And certainly at Instacart, it's really high. As you can imagine, we just whenever you're searching for something, we need to make sure it's personalized and you're seeing the things you typically buy or the things we think you will need. I think over time, we'll probably see much more of that. And I'm still thinking whether or not there will be a clear separation between a software engineer and a machine learning engineer, or a research scientist, as that might be called in some places. I don't know how, it's probably not very weird, but so Instacart generally has done grocery shopping, but in recent years, we've started onboarding other retailers basically. So Bed Bath & Beyond is on our platform now. Yeah, I just ended up, I realized one night that my pillows are not very good. So just went to Bed Bath & Beyond and ordered a pillow and got it within 2 hours. I don't know if it's very weird. It was certainly helpful for me.